I would like to talk to, get educated on, which is one of those things that I'm always keen to be, the situation with New Zealand sending some troops to the Middle East to support the work happening around the Huthi and, what the Huthi are doing, pirating, breaking onto ships, getting against ships, that kind of thing. But to actually set this up properly, what we might do is just play 80 seconds of this story from One News, and then what we will be able to do is have a bit more of a chat about what that means. Because my big question is, what does this tell the rest of the world about New Zealand now that we are officially and publicly supporting stopping the Huthi? For me, it's not so much a question of should we or shouldn't we. It's about what this says to the world and where this puts us as a country in the world in the whole Israel-Gaza conflict. So that's going to be my question to you when we come back. But first of all, let's just have a look at the 80 seconds of the story just to have a bit of a setup for what we're talking about.
It's attacks like these by Houthi rebels in the Red Sea that have disrupted global shipping and have led to the United States and the UK launching strikes on Yemen in retaliation. Now New Zealand's joining in.
Today we are announcing that we are sending 6 NZDF personnel to support any future military action against Houthi targets in Yemen and the Red Sea.
Our personnel will support coalition forces in carrying out precision attacks on identified military targets.
Will the intelligence that we're contributing towards the strikes against the Houthis, could those strikes take place in Yemen, or would it just be at sea?
Wherever they're needed to be, that's really clear.
We're sending our Defence Force personnel following a request.
We were asked by our American partners whether we would consider sending some support there.
The Houthi attacks are in response to the ongoing war in Gaza.
Already there has been a 1% increase in the price of oil. Why do the Houthis want to increase the price of oil? Because it will put pressure on the United States, the Biden administration, to move towards a ceasefire, which so far they have resisted.
He believes New Zealand's position on the strikes in Yemen is odd.
We are supporting the United States and the UK, which have been blocking a ceasefire, which we've been actually diplomatically demanding.
So that's just the 80 seconds I wanted to play, just to give us kind of a snapshot of what's going on. Words from that presser like sending our troops to support, not necessarily sending our troops to fight. I'm not sure what that wording means. Only 6 people going, so it does feel very symbolic more than anything else. But the question is, Marilyn, what is it symbolic of? The ball is yours.
I think the first thing that it symbolizes is our choice to throw our weight behind the same old suspects on the wrong side of history. Let me give you a parallel that I think is instructive. In 1979, when the Khmer Rouge fell in Cambodia after their genocidal rule, New Zealand chose to recognize the Khmer Rouge as the rightful representatives of the Cambodian people in the United Nations for a further 12 years. And we agreed to embargo aid to the starving survivors. And leaders of both Labour and National parties at different times said it was more important for us to display our loyalty to our allies than to get money to people in a famine. So this action symbolizes that we are making a similar choice. We'll do what our allies tell us, and we'll place the value of that higher than the value of human life.
Yeah. I saw a tweet today from a fairly well-known Palestinian based in New Zealand now who says this: we need to be clear here. This shipping route is a cover for the real reason, which is to let Israel finish the job in Gaza undisturbed. Yemen didn't block shipping routes. It's trying to partially blockade Israel. Ending Israel's assault on Gaza solves these issues. Does that ring true to you? Is that how you're seeing the situation?
Absolutely. Israel is offering Israel depoliticized time. That is, we are choosing to throw our weight behind a strategy that will not end the attack on Gaza. And we are also declining to look at cause. We are depoliticizing this. We've done that in Palestine for decades. We acquiesce to Israel's desire to create a humanitarian problem that will cover up the political problem. And we send aid, which is very much needed, but we send it shorn of any contextual understanding that would solve the real problem. It seems to me we're doing something very similar here. The Houthis are saying the cause is Israel's attack on Gaza. We are choosing to disregard that. Christopher Luxon said explicitly that he rejects any linkage between the Houthis and Gaza. So he's depoliticizing the action, and he's buying Israel time to carry on.
But this is, be it covert or, what's the opposite of covert? Obvious. Overt, yeah. A support of Israel's position as opposed to a neutral position or a support of Palestinian people.
Yes, I think it is. It is adopting Israel's perspective. It is obscuring or hiding the Palestinian perspective. It is lining up with power, in Israel's case, a regional power that likes to call itself European, but it's not in Europe. It is absolutely adopting the way that Israel would frame this, and we're putting military power behind it.
Sorry, I don't mean to smirk, but when you think about New Zealand military power behind it, yeah, it's not a lot, but it's symbolic anyway. I hear you.
In my time as a traveler, which was the 80s and 90s, I had the chance to sit at the edge of American-made bomb craters in Cambodia, Vietnam, Laos, Afghanistan, then Gaza, and never, not once, did anyone say to me, once they started bombing our cities, that's when we decided they were right and we began to love them. You know, America is manufacturing enmity, and we are lining up with it rather than saying our real interest in this world lies in justice and peace.
I want to take a trip with you into the multiverse right now, to a place that doesn't exist. If Christopher Luxon today had have got up and made some kind of symbolic gesture like this is to support Palestine, what would that have looked like? Like, what could he have done if he had decided to go the other way? Not symbolically support what Israel wants and America wants, but symbolically support what would be best for Palestine or the people of Gaza. I hate saying this because I'm sick and tired of having to defend it. Not Hamas, not talking about what's best for Hamas, talking about the innocent people, innocent Palestinians who have been killed. I tweeted something during the holiday break about 100,000 people in Gaza now are either dead, displaced or missing or something like that. It was huge numbers. What could be done symbolically from here to support those people rather than the Israel cause?
I think there are a few ways to answer that. The first answer is to back a ceasefire, to come out really clearly and actively to work for peace and the solutions that can come from justice. That's not just in the interests of Palestine, that's in the interests of everyone. If Luxon decided that he wanted to make a pro-Palestine move, I think what he could do is recognize the state of Palestine, because that changes the diplomatic conversation. Then you have two states in dialogue eventually. At the moment, Palestinians are not able to fully speak for themselves because they don't have sufficient recognition of their national voice. I think that would change things.
It seems ridiculous as well because so many politicians, now Luxon may be one of these, I know Seymour is because I've heard him say it on a breakfast show panel with Chloe Swarbrick. So many of them say, well, I think a two-state solution is the way to go, but they then won't go to the next logical step because a two-state solution needs for you to acknowledge Palestine as one of those states. So it actually needs you to acknowledge their statehood. But they're standing back now and they're saying we should get a two-state solution. Oh, so you acknowledge Palestine as an independent state? I'm not going there yet. It's like you have to. You can't have one without the other.
That's right. I call it the magic bean solution. Somehow, Palestine will simply materialize from nothing.
Yeah.
The nothing is what we're doing to make it happen. And you've pointed to something else, and that is that the recognition of Palestine would be entirely consistent with our existing stated diplomatic position. It doesn't require any change.
Yeah. It's really interesting as well to see a bit of a tangent here, but on the same topic, Marilyn, talking about what this says to the world about New Zealand. I'm paraphrasing for expedience to support the Israeli position, right? So symbolically. One of the dangers, it seems, in America this year is that there are a whole bunch of millennials and Gen Zs as well who are getting really angry because Biden is also taking, it's America who have asked us to come along and sign up. Now, there's a whole bunch of young people in America, let's say under 40s, under 30s, who are now rallying against Biden, who they would be normally drawn towards the left to vote for because of his position and the White House's position on Israel and Gaza right now. It seems that that this is a conservative position around the world, which is naturally why New Zealand would do it, a conservative government. But there is more danger added to the possibility of a fascist winning in the US based on Biden's support and the White House's support for this same kind of plan, as well as, of course, the more overt support by supplying the bombs to Israel that are landing in Gaza as well. Do you have any thoughts around that?
Yeah, I regularly hear people with whom I work in advocacy. They say, look, I simply can't vote for Biden anymore. And I say, as a Canadian-born New Zealander, I say, that's nice, but then what? Mm. But I think that plays out very differently here because we do have parties that are supporting better solutions. We have parties that are actively upfront supporting different actions. To Patimori, the Green Party, a number of people within Labour. So here, I think it was so evident in the last election that there was almost no conversation about international relations, and there's a perception that international relations does not relate to votes.
Yeah.
I think if we elevate this kind of concern that people are feeling about the state of the world, the injustice unfolding in front of our eyes, I think it could make an impact in a positive way in our next election.
What do you think happens next? I'm not talking about the Israel-Gaza situation. I'm really interested to still just dig into a bit more, or at least expand a bit more on what this symbolic gesture means for New Zealand as we're seen by the rest of the world. So now the rest of the world will look at us who are keeping an eye on the situation going, okay, well, they're on Israel's side. That's how they'll see it. What's next? What comes after this?
Yeah, how much harder is it to jump off having jumped on, right? Biden has said out loud, the bombing is not working, so we'll do more of it. Mm. So we're already on a slippery slope. How much harder is it to jump off if we're so concerned about disloyalty to our larger allies? So what happens next? I think we find ourselves in an increasingly tight squeeze. Netanyahu has acknowledged what we already knew, that there will be no two-state solution. Even if his government falls, Israel is so divided, it's hard to know what comes next. We're kind of jumping into the jaws of this in a way that has nothing to do with solutions. I think that's how we get seen. Oh, we're just one of them.
Speaking of international relations as well, we just saw Professor Rob Patman in the clip that we just saw. He's going to be with us in 24 hours from now to talk about the New Hampshire caucus, the GOP primary that's happening in New Hampshire tomorrow afternoon. This time tomorrow night, New Zealand time, we may have a confirmed Republican nominee. Should Donald Trump win that race tomorrow night, he may well then, everyone may well drop out. And so a little tease for people tomorrow night, Robert Patman talking about that. But then again, looking at Donald Trump being the GOP frontrunner, thinking about him being in the White House because, you know, Biden's losing a whole bunch of this progressive vote base based on what's happening in Israel. And as you say, what happens next, I think of it as like a double-sided coin. What happens next is as valid as we need to burn this down to start again. Like both of them have validity, because if what happens next means I have to keep voting this way, then it never changes. If you let it burn itself down, then you get Trump in, followed by Trump Jr., followed by DeSantis. I don't know, but you know what I mean? It's like, I've always said very clearly that there's that equal and opposite. Like they both have the same kind of validity, and it's a difficult choice to make, but it's a choice people are going to have to make. Suck the lemon, or, you know, throw the lemon in the bin and see what fruit comes up next. Fruit's probably the right word, actually.
And Trump has already drawn parallels between Israel attacking Hamas and America's need to deal with immigration on its southern border. I mean, it's unimaginable that this wingnut could have another 4 years. My sisters are all in Canada, and I've said to them on election night last time, build a wall. Just build the wall along the border before they all start coming north. That's my answer.
There was a comedian who did that, about a big long 7-minute setup about building a wall for safety, and then the end punchline was he lived in Canada, and that's what he was talking about doing. Hey, just before we leave, Marilyn, thanks so much for joining us tonight. The last time we talked to you, I think you were telling us about, it was quite an emotional thing to think about and quite harrowing, about checking your phone every day to see if your friends in Gaza were still alive. Are your friends, have we got people in safety? Are you still in contact with them? What's the situation between you and Gaza and the people of Gaza at the moment?
I'll give you one example. Recently, a friend I had not heard from for some time, I put out a message about how alarmed I was. And I got a call from his brother-in-law, and I think it was around 4 a.m, to say that he was alive, but he's in Rafah, so he has no communications. Right. And because I had put the message on Facebook, a number of people contacted me to confirm that he is alive. And in the course of confirming that my one friend is alive, I also heard about 18 new deaths in the families of these other friends. It is an absolute calamity unfolding. And if our national attention turns to shipping, we must not risk taking our eyes off Gaza. We need to bring about change. Rallies this weekend, you've got to come and call for this.
Yeah, no, and I think that's very true. And I take responsibility for this on some level, for this show on lots of level, that we, the media, took our eye off Ukraine. Ukraine was the biggest story in the world for several months. And then it was yesterday's news, but it's still happening. One of the things I'm determined to do is not take our eyes off Israel and Gaza. So this is a conscious decision to keep talking about this, because, you know, the world doesn't need another genocide. So we're not going to take our eyes off it. That's what we're going to make sure we do. May not be every night, people, but we're certainly not going to take our eyes off it, which is one of the reasons we've had you on tonight. So really appreciate you coming on. If people want to find out more about you and what you do, along with your colleagues, the Alternative Jewish Voices is ajv.org.nz. And it's always good to speak to you, Marilyn. And don't be a stranger. Anytime you want to come on, come and have a chat. We're here. Love to hear from you. And appreciate you being with us tonight. And lots of aroha goes out to you and the people you know in Gaza. It's a horrible story to hear, but I do thank you for sharing it with us.
Thank you. I look forward to helping hold you to that vow.
Excellent. And please do, 100%. It'll be something we keep on doing. I'm already speaking to, I said this last night, I'm speaking to a reporter who has been at The Hague watching the South African trial. I'm trying to connect with a comedian who is based out of Egypt, who is very, very firm on this conversation as well. So I'm actively pushing and trying to find interesting people and good content to keep this conversation at the forefront of our minds.
Great. Thank you. See you again soon.
Yep. Appreciate your time, Marilyn. Have a good night. Appreciate it.
You too. Bye-bye.